That he was a budding star in the making.
Two. Ohtani, right center field, and deep, and gone!
Offensive line, second down and 3. Big hole. Edwards-Helaire will take it to...
Under 5 minutes to go now. Arvidson's got an open man. Simpsons is in!
Here comes Bosa. Here comes the quarterback, Pearl. Looking for a block, and he got it up in the front by Hopkins into the end zone. Touchdown!
Hey, what's going on, people? What's going on again on this, yet again, another cold but lovely Saturday? It's always lovely when you're up above ground. I am your host, the Renegade, and once again, this is another episode of Changing the Game. This is episode 19. I am your host, the Renegade, right along with the sports analyst on the PR Connection, and Mr. Rocco Kelly. How we doing?
Doing pretty well. Recorded the Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio last night, and I'm here today to help you with changing the game, so let's get into it.
All right, I appreciate that. And we changed the format a little bit, and we're going to make it a little different. You fans might know, for some of y'all that have been watching Changing the Game, over the past few weeks and whatnot since we've been doing the show. Now we're going to kind of talk about just, major sports stories, because it's really tough with just an hour to try to cover all, major sports. And we do apologize for that, but we're just letting you know what's going on. And with that being said, one of the biggest stories that I've seen so far is coming out of the NFL. And for some strange reason, we always have big sports stories, even off-season, by the NFL. Why is that? You know?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I got you.
Yeah. So Deshaun Watson was just basically acquitted of all charges. Well, not acquitted, but they dropped all the charges because they found out that, a lot of the allegations of rape from all 22 women were pretty much false. Now, I got a question about that. I mean, it's kind of, to me, it's like if more than one person says the same thing, then it's probably true. I mean, do we make an exception for that sort of thing? With athletes?
Well, normally in the common scale of it, yes, we do make excuses for people who either A, have a lot of money, or B, people who are in the spotlight. And the way I've looked at the Deshaun Watson situation is that, yes, it has been dropped. He's not going to be charged criminally anyway. There's still all those cases, by the way, that are in civil that he still has to figure out, but in criminal charges, they're not going to be against him. But what I will say with Deshaun Watson is we have to look at a bigger picture here. And now that that cloud is over in terms of the criminal charges, the bigger question is what team is now going to be willing to trade 4 to 5 draft picks and their starting quarterback to get Deshaun Watson? Who's going to be a team that is so desperate to get a starting quarterback that they are going to be willing to sacrifice draft capital to get Deshaun Watson?
Well, here's my question about Deshaun Watson. Is Deshaun Watson even worth all of that? Is Deshaun Watson even worth, the draft capital and everything else that you want to talk about even having to get him? I mean, don't get me wrong. He's an exceptionally talented athlete. But at the end of the day, he brings baggage. He brings a lot of different things to the table, when it comes to being negative. And when it's negative like this, do we actually want to risk that draft capital and everything else that they got? Because he's probably by far one of the most talented quarterbacks to come into the NFL, I'd have to say, since Randall Cunningham. You know, he's got the IQ and he's got everything, but, you know, and God bless him. You know, he's been with the Houston Texans, and everybody knows that the Texans are terrible. They've been terrible, and they always will be. I'm sorry for all you Houston fans. You guys suck. Go ahead, Mr. Rock.
Well, I'm going to point this out by saying, yes, talent-wise, Deshaun Watson is one of the top 5 most talented quarterbacks in the game today. His IQ is high. Now, there is baggage, but let me compare Deshaun Watson to a quarterback who actually had a similar skill set and was extremely talented, but he had baggage. Let me compare him to a quarterback who everyone knew that when he stepped on the field, you had to watch out for him. This was a quarterback who you had to scheme against.
Do not say Mike Vick. Don't say Mike Vick.
Because understand that when it comes to someone like a Michael Vick, who is actually who I was going to say, let me say something about Michael Vick, is that when you watched his game film and when you watched what he had to offer, he was one of the most talented quarterbacks of the modern era.
Sure.
But yes, he had baggage.
Well, he only had baggage because of that dogfighting, because of the dogfighting. Don't get me wrong, I'm against animal cruelty. But at the same time, there's NFL players out here that's done a lot worse than that. And they still get the benefit of the doubt. Take a look at Ray Rice. Ray Lewis.
Actually, even before the animal cruelty, there was a lot of baggage when it came to the things that happened at Virginia Tech, the off-the-field issues that he had during that time period. And more importantly, when it came to Michael Vick, there was always these things with Dan Reeves about the attitude and everything like that. When it came to Michael Vick, there was baggage there. But he was one of the most talented quarterbacks in the NFL during that time. He was an exceptional quarterback.
Well, absolutely. He was an exceptional quarterback. I mean, with Mike Vick, he's a whole nother beast when we talk about, you know, people who've been in allegations and talent-wise, because Mike Vick, all 11 guys on the field had to account for Mike Vick. Because he still has probably the best skill set that's ever been put in NFL history. I mean, and everybody wants to dog Mike Vick because of his because of these allegations, and because of they say, oh well, Mike Vick's not an accurate passer. Okay, so when have you ever seen a quarterback with this kind of speed, who's left-handed by the way, that can throw the ball accurately 45 yards down the field with ever not having to slow down? He may have had to slow down, but it sure as hell didn't look like it.
Well, you got to remember that Steve Young, for a long time, was a solid left-hander who did run out of the pocket. Now, yes, he didn't have the speed of Michael Vick. I mean, of course, Michael Vick was one of the fastest quarterbacks in the NFL.
Sure.
But when it came to being a left-handed quarterback who was able to run with his feet, I mean, Steve Young, Jim Zorn, I mean, those were two of the original left-handers who actually knew how to run.
That's right. Who actually knew how to run. Now, there's one more notable Hall of Fame quarterback with two more that was left-handed. You had Joe Theismann, and you also had Ron Jaworski. Both of them were tall, and both of them were actually 7 feet.
Right, but once again, it was about the running.
Right,
and when it came to the speed,
athletic ability, I get it.
Right. When it came to the speed of Michael Vick, you hadn't seen him up to that point. But when it comes to Deshaun Watson, which is what we're talking about, there is going to be a team in the NFL that is so desperate for a starting quarterback that they're going to overlook the off-the-field stuff.
Sure.
There's a team that I'm thinking of right now that is so desperate. They've had terrible quarterbacks ever since their franchise QB left.
The Detroit Lions?
Surprisingly, no. I mean, Detroit Lions, they're going to draft a quarterback in this year's draft. I mean, it's pretty much been common sense that the Lions are going to draft
they had to, but you said a team that's been terrible since they've entered the NFL. I mean, it's really the only one, or the Jacksonville Jaguars. But it doesn't make sense.
The team I'm talking about that has been terrible since their franchise quarterback left is the Carolina Panthers. I mean, the Carolina Panthers, they've had stopgaps in Teddy Bridgewater. They've had stopgaps in P.J. Walker, Sam Darnold. But
and
ever
still
since
none of Cam Newton left. I get it. Well, Cam Newton is back with the Carolina Panthers.
But he's not the prime Cam Newton.
No, he's not. He's not. But have we actually gave him a chance? Because, I mean, he went, kind of like early season last year. So, I mean, we haven't really given him a chance to be in Carolina. That's the whole thing. So
focusing on the Deshaun Watson situation, I would take the Carolina Panthers. Are they willing to trade for draft picks to get Deshaun Watson? I'm going to lean towards yes. Because the Panthers do not have a starting quarterback right now.
Okay.
They simply don't.
Okay, and I get that. Let's throw in. There's some teams out there. There's some other teams out there that can use a starting quarterback like Deshaun Jackson. But here's another thing too. If we want to talk about all of that, why is it that the NFL is still not giving a look at Colin Kaepernick? He just put out a video 3 days ago, and he looks like he's in some of the best shape of his life. However, being the media guru that I am, I noticed little small details. And that little small detail was, well, he was throwing right-handed. He's a left-handed quarterback. Everybody knows that. But a lot of people, were talking about, the NFL. But no, I noticed that on these posts, nobody said, hey, wait a second. He's a left-handed quarterback. Why is he throwing right? So,
well, I understand your point, but I said this about Colin Kaepernick on my show last night, the Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio.
Did you really?
I talked about this last night. And when it came to the Colin Kaepernick situation, the one problem that most teams are going to have is the fact that he's been out of the league for so long.
Well, he's been out of the league for so long, but now, all of those old injuries that he did have had a chance to heal. So, and it's kind of like him adding 5 years to his NFL life versus losing 5 years. I mean, think about it. If Tom Brady could play to the age of 44 or 45, why can't Colin Kaepernick? Just saying.
Well, let me explain to you the general manager reason why. Because if you're an owner, if you're a general manager, if you're an executive of a team, you want to bring in a younger quarterback.
You do. That's true.
It's sad, but it's true. Like once you get into your mid 30s to late 30s, they're looking to replace you at any moment.
Right.
Keep in mind that Colin Kaepernick is 34 years old.
He's 34.
With Colin Kaepernick, if he had been a starting quarterback the last 5 years, if he had actually been playing in the NFL the last 5 years, then I agree with your statement. But Tom Brady was 44, but guess what? He also played 21 years in the NFL. He played every single year.
Understood.
So the reason why a general manager and the reason why an owner is probably not going to give him a shot, unfortunately, is because of how many years he hasn't been in the league.
Right, but I mean, he has been studying, and apparently he has been working out. So, I mean, we'll have yet to see that. But before we go any further, I do like to remind the fans that, hey, you guys are watching one of the greatest sports shows on the face of this planet, put together by none other than the Renegade himself. That's me, for those of y'all that don't know. This is Changing the Game, episode number 19, and with my favorite co-host on the face of this dang planet, one of the best and hard-working guys from the Sports Angle, the PR Connection, Mr. Rocco Kelly. Mr. Rocco Kelly. And, we really appreciate having you on the show. We appreciate having you as a part of No Filter. And with that being said, we got a load of this, but what about this bullshit I heard the Chicago Bears doing something? Yet another dumb move by the Bears. Yet another one. That whole just throw away the whole organization, please, for the love of God. I am so sick of seeing them make bad moves until it's terrible. How about they're getting ready to trade Khalil Mack probably one of the best talents that they have on the team. Well, I'm sorry, not one of, but the best. Because Justin Fields, I mean, let's face it, he's an Ohio State guy, has tremendous talent, but he still has a couple of years to like really prove himself. You know, I think that this coming up his sophomore season, we'll see the real Justin Fields. But you don't trade someone like Khalil Mack. And I'm just gonna ask one question before you respond. What the hell?
Well, understand that the Chicago Bears are entering a rebuild for the 50th time in a row.
Well, sure.
But because the Chicago Bears are rebuilding, they got rid of Eddie Goldman.
Man, the whole NFC North is rebuilding.
But hold on, the Chicago Bears, they got rid of Eddie Goldman, Tyreek Cohen. They released him on an injury condition. And Khalil Mack being traded. If you're a Bears fan, if you're someone who kept up with anything about Chicago, the moment they start a rebuild, they trade the most paid player, the highest paid player on the team. They've done that every single time. Khalil Mack, he signed that 6-year deal, $141 million.
That's right.
Make no mistake about it, Khalil Mack was going to get traded, not only because the last 2 years he's actually been injured, but the last 2 seasons he's also had a step back in performance.
Yeah.
Now, yes, is he a 6-time Pro Bowler? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Is he a 4-time All-Pro? Yes, he is.
That's right.
But with Khalil Mack, because of the fact they were paying him so much money, and the fact the Bears are trying to cut salary and start a rebuild, that's the reason why Khalil Mack was traded.
Well, I get all of that. But you do what you can to keep him. I mean, shit, if you have to trade the rest of that garbage ass team to keep him, you do that. I mean, you don't, that's the thing. You don't give away your prize stallion, especially if you plan on running in the Kentucky Derby. Everybody knows that. I mean, that's just, but they've been doing this and I get that the NFL, just like any other sports organization, is a business, but come on. How do you plan on selling tickets if you suck?
Well, it's interesting because you keep saying, like, they should delete the franchise.
Yeah, they should.
But I think the Detroit
Lions...
Right
along with them bums. I was getting ready to say.
Yeah, I think
Detroit Lions, I'm a diehard Detroit Lions fan. And they should have gotten... The Fords ought to be sued left, right, and in all points in between for having such a shitty franchise. They've been rebuilding since 1957. Hell, let's face it. And Sheila Ford Hemp is no better of an owner, but I will say this: they are kind of headed in the right direction as far as the attitude and the culture change in the locker room with the hire of Dan Campbell as their head coach. And it's holding some promise, but I mean, hell, they've been promising since 1957 too.
Okay, so if you want to talk about that, then the Chicago Bears, they brought in a former Bear as a general manager, Ryan Poles. Mm-hmm. They've hired a new head coach, former Cowboys linebacker coach, Matt Eberflus.
Hey, did they? That was a good hire. Actually,
the Chicago Bears are starting out on a brand new page.
Right. And
you also might have noticed that they released and they traded the people that were brought in from the Ryan Pace era. So it's not surprising, Renegade, that the Chicago Bears made the moves that they did because they got rid of people who have been around during the Pace era and or was drafted during the Pace era. So it's not uncommon to see this in the NFL because there are administrations, there are regimes that get brought in and they start tearing down what was before.
Right.
So the Chicago Bears, they're going to start this rebuild. It's going to be a 3-year process. I understand that. Believe me, Bears fans are well aware the next 3 years are going to be terrible.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's and you gotta crawl before you walk, I guess. I mean, and that's the whole thing, even with, the NFL. And by the way, please like and share and subscribe to No Filter Productions LLC YouTube channel. We've got it all, Jack. We've got it all. Every kind of piece of freaking content you want to name. We have this would make the 176th project that we have done. No, that's a great thing. Also, check out the new www.nofilter NoFilterProductionsLLC.com, the new website. And I'll tell you, Cloud LGS and I really did a kick-ass job redesigning that. I want to thank so much out for those guys. Shout out to them. They're doing my SEO. It's a great company. And they're out of Tempe, Arizona. Beautiful. Anyway, enough about that. So we're going to go on ahead and jump on to everybody is jumping on the Philadelphia 76ers bandwagon. Apparently it keeps growing and there's lots of room, but guess what? I am not sold. Mr. Thomas keeps hitting me up telling me about these garbage cans. But we all know what happens to James Harden in the playoffs. He trash. He's basura, as the Spanish would say. He is hot garbage. And if he's not hot garbage, he's out. He's hurt all the time. He hasn't proved to me nothing except he is more or less of another, let's just say Charles Barkley or Carmelo Anthony. Great player, just can't win a championship. He does not have that championship pedigree. What do you think?
Well, the 76ers, they have talent. Let's not let's not, just scoff at the fact that they don't have talent. They do. They have talent.
They've got talent, they just ain't winning. They just can't.
They have a top 2 MVP candidate right now in Joel Embiid. Like him and Nikola Jokic are, neck and neck in terms of MVP.
You know what? And that's great. That's great. But they still need to win. Period.
Here's the problem, and I've said this about the NBA, and I'll say it once again, is that when you get into the playoffs, you are not, feasting on the bottom feeders of the NBA. You're not just winning against the worst teams in the entire league.
Because when they do that, they are dumpster fire. They are dumpster juice. Matter of fact, they're the strings that hold in the trash juice and all the trash in the bag.
So when it comes to the Eastern Conference, understand that it has been very top heavy for majority of the last decade. You'll have 2 or 3 teams, that are going to be great, and then you have the rest
of
the teams
them are average, if not worse. I get it. There hasn't been much parity in the Eastern Conference, I'd have to say, within the past 10 years.
But this year, surprisingly, has been different.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the Eastern Conference, if I remember correctly, I think from 2nd all the way to 6th are only separated by a couple of games.
They are.
So when you get to the NBA, when you're looking at that, the point I was going to make is that the 76ers are not going to be beating up on the Orlando Magic. They're not going to be beating up on the Detroit Pistons. They're not going to be feasting on the Indiana Pacers. No, when you get into the playoffs, you're going to have to go up against Cleveland. You're going to have to go up against Toronto. You're going to have to go up against Brooklyn. And the Philadelphia 76ers, this team, it's good enough to get to the Eastern Conference Finals, but I don't know if they're good enough to get to the NBA Finals. Because the current NBA and the current landscape of the NBA, it tells me that for starters, Brooklyn, by the way, they're starting to turn it around now. We've been seeing the chemistry starting to come back into form.
Right.
You're seeing the Miami Heat and what they're doing.
Oh, man, and listen, the Miami Heat is definitely one of my teams to really look the Miami Heat is one of my teams to look and really make a push for the NBA Finals. I wouldn't be surprised to see him there representing the East.
Right. So when it comes to the NBA, I've been telling people is that, look, Philadelphia, they might make the NBA Eastern Conference Finals. I wouldn't be surprised if they get that far. They're good enough to get into the Eastern Conference Finals. I just don't know if it's going to be Miami or if it's going to be Brooklyn, but one of those 2 teams is going to meet them in the Eastern Conference Finals. And the depth of the Miami Heat and the chemistry of the Brooklyn Nets, the more and more they're playing on the same team, that's going to help them get to the NBA Finals. I've been saying that for months.
Right.
Is that it's either going to be Miami or it's going to be Brooklyn. It's one of the 2.
Right. And I just think that at the end of the day, it's just going to come down to whether or not Harden stays healthy, Joel Embiid stays healthy, and everybody around them can stay healthy and continue to play as a team, because right now they balling out. They are playing lights out basketball. And I'm seeing some things from them that I haven't seen from them in a while. I'm seeing things like them actually playing basketball. I'm seeing them making the extra pass. I'm seeing them, actually hustling down the court, diving for loose balls, getting back on defense. All of the things that makes teams in the NBA great.
Right.
And they're really looking good on the defensive end as far as being able to challenge shots, overplaying the passing lanes. I mean, they're doing all these things correctly. And I think, actually having Ben Simmons, and I get, everyone's saying that the Brooklyn Nets have won that trade. And I don't disagree with that, but it's all a part of perception, and it's all about the mentality. And right now, they are playing exceptionally well without Ben Simmons.
You have to remember that Ben Simmons, the reason why they mainly got him is because of his defense. Now, offense, he is not the greatest guy. No doubt about it.
Right, but you gotta have a point guard that can score. I mean, that's kind of it.
Well, see, I agree and I disagree. I agree that there are certain teams that are point heavy.
Yeah.
But we've actually seen the last 4 or 5 years in the NBA Finals that you do not have to have your point guard be the number one guy in order to be successful. I mean, we saw with Milwaukee, we saw with, for example, Phoenix. Like, Chris Paul was not the main guy. You had Devin Booker, you had DeAndre Ayton. Those two were running it. Milwaukee had Giannis. He was running it. And with the Los Angeles Lakers during LeBron's era, well, guess what? LeBron, he was the main guy, and Anthony Davis was the main guy.
He was.
So, you're seeing in the NBA that, yes, it's nice to have a point guard who can shoot and score, but really since Steph Curry, you really haven't seen a point guard in the NBA who has to be the number one guy. And heck, even if we're being honest about Steph Curry, during those NBA Finals, he wasn't even being the main guy. It was Kevin Durant. Like, Kevin Durant was the guy
and that's fair. But let's make a case for Mr. Ja Morant.
I like Ja Morant. He's solid.
And being the number one option on that Memphis Grizzlies team. So I mean, we can make a case for that. Being that what you were saying is that we haven't had a point guard in the league who has been the number one option in a while, and that part is true. But we do have that guy named Ja Morant that's there in Memphis right now, just dunking on everybody.
Well, no, I understand Ja
through
Morant.
the lane. I mean, that's just what
I understand Ja Morant, but here's my point. My point was that in the NBA Finals, it's been almost about 8 or 9 years since we've seen a point guard who had to be the number one guy.
And yes, that's true. But last year, it had the Phoenix Suns won the NBA title, we could have made a case for Chris Paul doing that, being that number one guy. But of course they didn't win, so there's that. So anyway, before we go on to our next topic, hey, we appreciate you guys watching us. Hey, how's it going for the people out there in Puerto Rico? Bienvenidos. Thank you for joining us. Even though you are a part of the U.S., you still show up on my country map as a country. So we appreciate you tuning in. We're talking one of your favorite sports right now is basketball. Hey, by the way, speaking of Puerto Rico, I did have a chance to check out, the Puerto Rican national team while I was there, and they're actually pretty good. They're not a bad team as far as like when they play in the FIBA World Championships and the FIBA World Cup and all of that. They're actually not bad. They do play crisp, clean basketball. They don't necessarily have, the kind of talent that, some of the other countries have, but they do well together. And, I appreciate watching, their brand of basketball, but we appreciate you tuning in. Hey, thanks for joining us, by the way. And that makes, We're not even going to count them as a country because they're still a part of us, or meaning the U.S. But, you know, shout out to Japan, Pakistan, you know, and a lot of other countries that have been tuning in. We appreciate it. All right, so with that being said, back to the NBA. So therefore, you know, with that being said, I mean, we've had a lot of different things. Oh, how about this? You hear Westbrook, Russell Westbrook is pretty upset right now because people keep calling him Westbrook. Well, you know, hey, stop shooting the damn ball then. If you're not making your basket, stop shooting the ball.
All right, here's my thing about Russell Westbrook. I do agree with you that yes, I mean Westbrook, you know, it shouldn't be the thing that upsets you. However, I'm gonna say
him missing shots and the Los Angeles Lakers losing games and not living up to their full potential should upset him. It should be the fact that fans are telling the truth and calling him Westbrook.
Well, here's the thing about the fans.
Building the houses.
Here's the thing about the fans. All right, I understand fans are passionate.
Yeah,
I get it. But the moment that death threats on a person's family gets involved,
now that's a bit much. I will say that, and I do apologize to you. I did kind of miss that. You know,
because Russell Westbrook's wife came out and said that there's been death threats against her, death threats against him. Like, that's the point when, as a sports fan, you really need to step back.
Yeah, and we really need to reevaluate what's real and what's not. Yeah, I get it. And as a sports fan, this should not go on. And this is why, you know, as far as sports, they're not what they used to be. And this is why they continue to go down the drain. The NBA, the NFL, everybody except for our favorite, the NHL, because the NHL still do things the right way as an organization.
No, I agree. I mean, when it comes to MLB and NHL, you don't see as many death threats as you see with the NBA and NFL. But there is some problems with the NHL and MLB that is under the surface and still needs to be addressed. So,
well, sure, I mean, but they do a great job. They do a great job as far as PR is concerned.
Yeah.
And you know, and that's what but see, that's because the NHL doesn't have, you know, those type of problems that all the rest of these sports organizations do.
For people who've been around the block a few times like me, it's very frustrating because
in terms of
still be a progressive force in society.
In terms of just, you know, like with all of the bad PR.
Okay.
You know, that's pretty much what I'm trying to say from all of that. It's, you know, not that, you know, not that I'm against, you know, what the NFL and the NHL and everybody else does. It's just the fact that, you know, sometimes we got to really be careful about how we choose to go about doing our business on that.
Yeah, I can understand that.
So, but yes, I mean, he should be upset for the fact that he's getting death threats, but not because people are calling him Westbrook. Excuse me.
Yeah. You know what? When we're talking about the NBA, when we're talking about the Lakers, I might as well talk about this because this is actually upsetting me on a personal level.
All right.
So when they brought in the bubble and when they were doing the play-in tournaments, they decided that, you know what, we're going to bring this back for the next year. And we saw last year the Lakers versus the Warriors, and, you know, that was an epic thing, and ratings are through the roof.
Hey, but, you know, I like that idea of them being in the bubble.
But you know what? But can I point out something real quick?
Sure.
There is absolutely no reason why the 8 games below 500 Lakers and the 13 game below 500 Pelicans should be in a play-in tournament to face the Clippers, who are 1 game above 500. No reason.
No, there's not. And you know, everybody is praising Adam Silver on how good of a job that he's doing in the NBA. And, I'm sorry, but I beg to differ. Just because I think that David Stern did a much better job and he let the game grow organically as it should have. And I think Adam Silver is really, he's forcing growth right now. And I think that in the end, this is why we have, what we have going on in the NBA.
Well, I agree and disagree to an extent. Yeah, David Stern was great at what he did, but Adam Silver has actually made a lot of great progress in the NBA, but it's been mainly off the field, off the court.
Right.
To put it off the list. On the court, he really hasn't done, a lot of things that are positive, but off the court, the NBA Africa project.
That's a great thing. It's the BAL, is what it's called, right. I do believe.
The development and the growth in terms of money for the NBA, that's happened a lot since 2014 when Adam Silver took over. The popularity, the NBA, basketball is the second most popular sport in the world, and it's been growing massively over the last decade. So off the court, Adam Silver has done a lot positive for the NBA, but I get what you're saying about on the court.
And, to me, it's about, performance on the court. All right, so we're going to jump over to our next topic. Major League Baseball. Hey, welcome back. I wish I would have downloaded the Welcome Back Cotter song. The Welcome Back. The players and the owners have reached an agreement. And it's good to see that they are not going on. They're not going to strike, and we're not going to miss the 2022 baseball season. And I just hope that this, fuels a lot of baseball. Let's talk about some of the terms we've got going on, Mr. Sports Angle. What you got?
Well, when it comes to MLB, the actual agreement that they did come up with, there's a lot of things in that actual CBA. I'm not going to talk about every single thing that happened, but let me talk about the economics, because the economics is the main reason why this happened. So, the first major breakthrough that happened was the fact that the minimum salary has gone up. The minimum salary is bumped up by $27,000, and the fact that you will have an increase from $59,000 to $63,000 when it comes to that. And that's a big deal when you really think about the fact that when it comes to how little minor league baseball players were being paid, that is a huge step up. So the minimum salary, that was the first thing that got brought in and is being put into effect. The second is the pre-arbitration bonus pool. So MLB agreed with the MLB Player Association. They're now going to create a bonus pool, which is funded by the league. It's going to reward the top performers in Major League Baseball. I think it's about $15 million. It's about $15 million increase with MLB, and that's very huge for the fact that these players now don't have to wait 4 or 5 years to actually get paid. Now there's going to be more money that's going to be brought in, at a younger age.
Right, and I think that's a fabulous thing, for the players, and to be able to, we're really starting to see, we're really going to start seeing some of these Major League Baseball players, or the guys that, how can I put it, the guys that are in the minor leagues, that's actually really putting in work. And that's the thing. They may not play 162 games, but they sure play a lot of games. They play close to 60 or 70.
Now, I will say two final things that was very important economically that this proposal's done right. That is the competitive balance tax. So now if you go over $222 million for your entire payroll, you are going to get a first round pick taken away from you in the MLB draft. There's still no floor, however. You could spend only $30 million on payroll for a team. That is allowed. But the maximum salary now, it's going to go up by $2 million every single year. However, when it comes to the MLB teams, you're not going to see the LA Dodgers spending $285 million like they did last year. There's going to be that $222 million balance tax that's being put in the MLB.
And, and like I said, all of these things, is definitely a good thing for, some of the players and some of the younger players coming up. I mean, like I said, they, getting paid $8,000 a whole season is just outrageous to me. I mean, granted, you play the game you love, sure. But, I mean...
Right, but $8,000, that doesn't even get you food at Panda Express.
No. I mean, hell... I think I pay more than that in taxes every year. I'm just saying, it's almost ridiculous. And I mean, I get the fact that it may look like, it's for them, and all I can say is good for them. Go ahead.
There was also two other things. They're going to be including a draft lottery now. So they're kind of taking the NBA mold of the draft lottery, so that's going to be an important factor. And you are not going to be allowed to trade first round picks anymore, because MLB used to do that. Like, one of the most infamous trades in MLB history was in 2009. The Yankees traded their first round pick to get Mark Teixeira, who was a really good first baseman at the time. Well, that first round pick ended up being the 26th overall pick, and that ended up being Mike Trout. So the Angels got Mike Trout in a benefactor of the fact that the Yankees gave their first round pick to get Mark Teixeira.
I mean, and that's, and that's all fine and well, and that's cool and everything. I'm just happy to see that, these minor league players finally get some kind of a reprieve.
Right.
For, I mean, something. It's better than nothing, that's for sure. Because they were literally getting nothing for all of that work. And I mean, personally, if I were them, I was kind of wondering why the players didn't stand up for them sooner.
Well, they had to wait for the collective bargaining agreement to expire. That's essentially what it was.
Yeah, that's true. That's true too. So, I mean, and with that being said, we do have a couple of moves that's been made, as far as baseball is concerned, and what's going on with that. Let me see here. What do we have? We got a lot of different things. Just a lot of, notable acquisitions and trades and things like that. And, some of the teams have actually started really diving into, the season. If I can find it. Okay, Christ, I can't find it. You know what? As Bobby Uecker said, the hell with it.
I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the fact that the Giants, they gave $44 million to Carlos Rodon from the Chicago White Sox. That's a big deal. You had Mariners pitcher Kikuchi. He signed a 3-year deal to go to the Toronto Blue Jays. Mm-hmm. And you also had the Mets trading for Oakland Athletics pitcher Chris Bassett.
Also, you got the New York Mets. They got Chris Bassett from the Oakland Athletics. We got Isaiah Kinner Fafella goes to Minnesota for Mitch Garver and Ronnie Enriquez.
That is true. That is true.
Got the Washington Nationals. They reached a 1-year deal with Steve Chizik.
Chizik, solid relief pitcher. Mm-hmm. He was with both Chicago teams, but heading back into the NL East. Yes.
Yep. And then we got Carlos Rondon is a lefty. He agrees with the San Francisco Giants on a 2-year deal, $44 million.
Yeah, Rodon, he's a phenomenal player. Yeah.
Yep. And Clayton Kershaw, of course, signed for another 1-year deal, $17 million. He's getting out of that. He's getting off of that. Great, and that's good for them. I mean, so there have been some pretty good off-season moves, mainly pitchers. So are we going to start seeing, are we going to start seeing pitching like really, 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 really come about in the major leagues? Like, and I love it when it's a pitcher's game.
Defense is what wins championships in baseball.
Yeah,
I mean, I know a lot of people love to see offense. People love to see 8 home runs in a game. I get it. But if you really watch the World Series, it's dominated by defensive play.
That it is.
So
That it is. And, I'm just happy to see, I want to see some great major league pitching, come back and really, really get her done. And that's, and this will be some good things.
yeah, you know what? I agree. I understand what you're saying. Absolutely. When it comes to what's been going on with MLB, the one thing that hasn't happened yet is the signing of Freddie Freeman. I mean, Freddie Freeman, former MVP, he's somebody that definitely needs a lot of money, definitely to go someplace. And so far, the Dodgers and the Braves are down to the final 2, so they'll be interesting.
Yeah, it is. It is. So with that being said, NHL, is there any good thing in the NHL right now? What's going on?
Well, with the NHL, you have the NHL trade deadline that is going to be later this month, and there are certain trades and certain trade proposals that have been going on right now. However, the fact that the Minnesota Wild, they retired former captain Mikko Koivu, first jersey retirement by the Minnesota Wild in team history.
Wow, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, Mikko Koivu was an amazing player for the Minnesota Wild. I mean, he was a phenomenal captain for them. You have the Avalanche captain right now, Gabriel Landeskog. He underwent knee surgery. He's going to be out indefinitely for Colorado, so that's a big loss for the team that's first in the Western Conference.
Oh, well, you have that from time to time, I guess. So we're, and that would be cool. I think it would be great.
And then finally, you have the battle for the 8th seed right now in the Western Conference and Eastern Conference. In the Eastern Conference, the Washington Capitals and Columbus Blue Jackets are battling for the 8th seed right now. Yes, you do have Detroit, you do have New York. I mean, they're struggling to stay in the hunt. But right now, it's pretty much down to Washington and Columbus right now.
And there again, we always hear this. Reoccurring theme. With the Columbus Blue Jackets, they're such a great team, but they play in an even better conference. I think if they were somewhere else, in say another conference or whatnot, they would actually, dominate. They're that good of a team. They just play, against better talent. And a pretty loaded division.
Yeah, that's a really loaded division, and let's just very quickly go over the top 8 in each conference just to do this. So in the Eastern Conference, the Carolina Hurricanes are in first place. Florida Panthers are in second. The Tampa Bay Lightning, the reigning champions, are in third. Mm-hmm. Toronto Maple Leafs are in fourth. Pittsburgh Penguins in 5th. The New York Rangers are in 6th. Boston Bruins in 7th. Washington Capitals are in 8th.
And that's in the East.
And that is in the Eastern Conference, absolutely. And then Columbus and the Detroit Red Wings are 9th and 10th, respectively.
Right.
In the Western Conference right now, you have the Colorado Avalanche in first place in the division. And then you have the Calgary Flames in second, St. Louis Blues in third, Minnesota Wild in fourth, LA Kings in fifth, the Nashville Predators in sixth, Vegas Golden Knights in seventh, and Dallas Stars rounding out the top 8. And the 2 teams that are trying to get into the 8th seed are the Edmonton Oilers in 9th and the Vancouver Canucks in 10th.
All right. Cool. So, and with that being said, playoff season is approaching us in hockey, and we wish all of those teams there good luck, and we will be having a little more hockey coverage than what we normally do. On that note, I got to get my hockey game back up.
23 games left in the regular season, so that's a little over 2 months.
Right.
Yep.
And so, it is quickly approaching, just like everything else does. Hey, and before we end the show, hey, I want to give a special shout out to Coach Prime. He had a couple of toes amputated. Of course, Coach Prime, head coach Deion Sanders, head coach of the Jackson State Tigers football program. They had an incredible season at 11-1, and he managed to land 2 of the top 100 in the country to come to Jackson State. So he's a hell of a recruiter. And he's really trying to do his best to get, HBCUs more involved, get them out of the FBC and into, more like primetime light, to shed some light on some of the talent that's come there. Now, let's make no mistake, there has been talent like Jerry Rice. He came from Mississippi Valley State, which is an HBCU. Former Heisman Trophy winner Steve McNair came from Alcorn State. So there's that. Doug Williams, he came from Grambling University. There's been a ton of talent to come out. Go ahead.
You're not going to mention Jackson State's own Walter Payton?
Yes, and Walter Payton. I'm sorry. The sweetness, forgive me. I apologize for that. But yes, Jackson State's own Walter Payton also came from an HBCU. So there's a ton of talent out there, and kudos to the NFL because, if you got talent and they, no matter what school you go to, they will find you. They will definitely find you. So, we will be doing, that, and we wish him well on that. I think he's going to be okay. I think he is going to be back on the sidelines this season. So we'll be seeing him soon. All right, so with that being said, we're going to end the show a little early, but you got any last words?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but when it comes to the NBA, I think there are about 15 games left, around there, 14, 15?
Ish.
So it's going to be interesting to see what the last month of the NBA regular season is, and I'm watching Memphis and I'm watching Utah right now because they're building up momentum while Golden State is struggling. Phoenix has already clinched a playoff spot, as we all know, but that seems going to be very important in a very packed Western Conference.
Yeah, and like you said, it's going to be really interesting to see what's going to happen with that. But anyway, going ahead, plug your show.
Absolutely. So my name is Ian Rakelli. I'm the host of the Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio. Find me every Friday night from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Pacific, 10 to midnight Eastern on PR Connections Radio. And I do a lot of projects. There's a lot of things I'm doing in the works right now. There's a production company I'm helping with. There's all these other things I'm working on the side. But you can find me on social media at Ian Rakelli18 on Twitter. And you can also find the show on all social media platforms at Sports Angle on PR. So once again, that is the Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio every Friday night on prconnectionsradio.com. And that is 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern.
All right. And with that being said, you know where we are. This is the Renegade once again, coming at you live with our Changing the Game. This has been episode number 19. 20 will be next week, 8 o'clock p.m. sharp, Eastern Standard Time. We'll be right here. Until then, hey, for everybody that's out there, if you got to end anything, make sure you end it in peace. And with that, have a good one.